I'm Keith Timimi. I'm the chairman of VML Qais and also of Stanley Street Labs. Going into periods of darkness, that's certainly one of my character flaws, and in the early days that might have been one of the most challenging ones that I had to deal with. Different entrepreneurs deal with the challenges of business in different ways. So some people will end up screaming and shouting at their team, or go home and scream and shout at their family and friends. I've done that a little bit, not to a great deal, but and I think generally you end up just feeling lousy, and then people start leaving you if you do that. You know, your team members might leave you, your family members might decide and never want to talk to you again. So that's definitely not a good idea. Or conversely, you might kind of turn inwards, turn very, very broody, get very quiet, and just kind of beat yourself up inside. And that's something that I certainly have done, and that's no good for anyone either. So I think when you come to those scenarios where everything looks bleak, you need to find ways that you can talk about it. You need to have people in your life that you can have that open discussion with. Well, hopefully I'll be floating around on a mega yacht in the Mediterranean. But as leading up to that, I love being in the startup environment. I really enjoy that. I don't enjoy as much being in the operating a business environment, to be frank with you. And again, I don't think I'm alone in entrepreneurs. So I think that I will always be involved in some form or other in the startup world. Hopefully both in terms of starting more businesses in the future, on my own, with partners, whatever it is. For sure in terms of investing in other people's businesses when they come up, when they're people that I think have potential and the idea that they have interests me. And for sure in advising other businesses in what they do. Growing up in Iraq and seeing the effect of a sort of authoritarian, dogmatic regime that had very specific views, pretty crazy views in my opinion, and which enforced them on a whole society. And there was no room for anyone to have alternative views, and anyone who did would tend to be imprisoned, tortured, maimed, killed, and terrible things would happen to them and their families. And so one of the things that has always been a big question in my head is how can we change the world so that things like that no longer are normal? And I think there is a role for the kind of technology that we work with as entrepreneurs in terms of social media, the internet, mobile technology, and so on. And I think in very general terms, that role is that when the world becomes more open, when information is more available to people, when people themselves can report information, and that information can be disseminated around the world instantaneously, then it starts to change the dynamic of what is and isn't considered feasible. In a way, this was some of the thought behind WikiLeaks. This concept that if you no longer have, if things are brought out into the open, then your behavior starts to change. So if people understand what diplomats are doing, then diplomats will no longer make some of the Faustian kind of bargains that they do today, right? I'm not entirely sure if I agree with the way WikiLeaks has gone about doing things. But I think that notion of increasing transparency will make it, over the course of time, will be one of the things that starts to remove the opportunity for dictatorial regimes to flourish in the way that they have, for example, in the Middle East. I think Singapore is a fantastic place to live in. I can't really praise Singapore enough in terms of what it's brought to me in terms of my personal life and the wonderful family life I have now, and in terms of the ease of doing business and the quality of the kind of business relationships and the kind of friendships you can strike here. And obviously the accessibility to the rest of Asia, which is without question the most exciting part of the world to be in right now. Certainly Singapore has challenges, and I think those challenges are going to stress it more and more. You're going to have, you've had more and more people coming here. You're going to have more people coming here. The latest plan from the government that I was hearing in the last few days is that we're going to grow to a 6.9 million population from the 5.5, 5.6 million we are now. That's a lot of people. The MRTs are already crowded, the roads are already traffic jams, the HDB prices are going up, the availability is not there. So it's clearly going to put a lot of stress on the infrastructure of the country. Having said that, I think if anyone can find creative, practical solutions to solve those issues, my money's on Singaporeans to get those things sorted out. So I continue to be a believer. I do have concerns. I believe anyone who lives here does, because we've got a lot of issues to solve. But I think not only will we collectively solve them, I think we'll build models that we're going to find cities around the world following and adopting. So I'm really looking forward in many ways to see how we deal with those issues. You got to be in the game. So first thing is, if you want to do something, you got to get up and do it. And the second thing is, when things go wrong, which they will, you've got to be ready to deal with it. And the third thing is, in that scenario, you've got to decide either, is this a bump along the road and we're going to continue with what we're going to do, or is this something that I fundamentally need to change? Do I need to pivot? Do I need to go in a new direction? I call that fail fast. So you've got to fail fast. You've got to decide, is that failure something that's telling you do something else, or is that failure means this is just one of the rejections I have to overcome? And if you can do that, you're going to live a great life, so go for it.